So I just read you the full statement from Boulder Police. For just generally, what's your first take on it?
Well, their statement, in a way, if you just condense it, is like what they've put out before. We're doing everything we can. We're trying really hard. Thank you very much. And I didn't hear any positive action steps being taken other than a cold case review in the year 2023. I do disagree on what I know and read about the amount of DNA available to be sampled. There's a recent article that I saw today about an old case that was solved by outside people that are really experts in this stuff, with what they described as a gnat's amount of DNA evidence. There was very, very little, and it was an old case. That's what needs to be done here. The FBI told us months ago that the government does not have the latest technology to do this kind of work. It's available in a few private labs that are cutting edge labs in the whole DNA world. Someday the government will have it, but they don't have it today. So that's where this has to go, are these few really expert cutting edge DNA labs, and turn them loose. And they're willing to do it, and they're eager to do it. But until that happens, this probably is not going to go anywhere.
I just want to be clear. You would like the DNA, whatever is left of it, you would like whatever is left of the DNA evidence to be tested right now.
Yes. We know, based on what we have heard and are aware of, there's 4, 5, 6 items taken from the crime scene initially that were never tested for DNA sampling. They were sent to the DNA lab, Bodie Labs, back in 1997 and returned. They were not tested. They tested a few of the samples, but not all of them. Why they didn't test them all, I don't know. Was it a money issue? I don't know, but they didn't. They sent those 5 or 6 samples back, which at the time they suspected would have some DNA information on them because they were taken, right from the crime scene. Why aren't those being tested? They should be right now. There's waiting for the next generation of DNA technology is silly. We're going to wait another 25 years. No, it's out there. It's being done successfully. The Colorado, Denver police, I believe, solved a recent cold case using this technology, where you not only get a valid DNA sample using very minute amounts of available sample. Then you go to the family genealogy database, the public DNA database, which has millions of sample in it. I put mine in just to see what my heritage was. My wife did, and where the successes come from that is they then find a similar person out there in the world and do basically a reverse family tree and get back to, hey, they had 3 relatives in Boulder in 1996. Let's look at those 3 people. And they solved the Golden State Killer in California was the first to solve that using that technique. The FBI CODIS database it's a limited amount of information, people in the database. It's felons, it's rapists. Some states don't submit DNA samples to the CODIS database at all. Some states, one state, and I don't remember which one it was, only submits the DNA of a felon after they're released from prison. That's silly. We take fingerprints when somebody's arrested for felony. We ought to take DNA samples and put them in the database, but that doesn't happen universally in our country. The public database is huge. It's a lot of work, I have no doubt, but that's what needs to be done.
What about the argument that if they tested, what about the argument that they don't want to destroy what remains of the DNA evidence by testing it right now.
Well, I understand that argument, and I don't know enough about it to know if that's a valid argument. I just trust that it is. But if there's 4, 5, 6 sample items that never been tested, those ought to be looked at first. Is there valid DNA information that can be extracted from those samples, from those items? Why we don't do that is beyond me. Unless, and I worry about this, that they've either lost or misplaced those items. Don't know. But why in the world you wouldn't test them now, given that the technology has advanced dramatically in 25 years, is I don't understand that.
When's the last conversation you had with somebody at Boulder Police or the DA's office about this issue?
I don't know that I've ever had Boulder Police have never contacted me, nor has the DA's office. The last meeting and conversation I had with the Boulder Police was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I asked for a meeting with their new, at that time, chief of police, and I wanted to sit down and have a meeting. And he graciously agreed to a meeting. And I said, look, we've had a lot of bad blood over the last 15, 20 years. Let's start a new chapter. We've got to solve this crime. If you solve it, you'll hear nothing but praise coming out of my mouth. I'm not going to criticize you for the past. And that's the last conversation I've ever had with the Boulder Police. That was I initiated it. So they do not communicate with me.
Would you want to talk to the new chief, Chief Harold?
Sure. Sure. But it can't hurt, but I don't know that I would expect any progress.
Are you curious about sort of the timing of this press release? It wasn't pegged to the anniversary, or it just sort of seemed to come out of the blue and they didn't really say.
No, I think, I had written a letter to Governor Polis and outlined the things that hadn't been done and for which I do criticize the police for, and asked him to intervene to have these samples tested at these cutting edge labs and then go to the general public genealogy database and start a search that way. And I asked him to do whatever he can to make that happen. And this press release seemed to address all the issues that I said needed to be done, so they could say, well, we told you we're doing them,
Right.
Thank you very much.
Did you ever hear back from the governor's office?
I have not yet. No. And that was maybe a month ago I sent the letter. And I realized he was dealing with an election and all that. So, but all I'm asking him to do is ensure that the authorities, the government, are doing all that can be done and doing the right thing. Period. Do what can be done and do what's right to do it. Don't just hope someday somebody's going to call and say, oh, I know who killed JonBenet, and okay, well, come on in, we'll talk to you. That's not going to happen. Hadn't happened in 26 years. Let's do what we know based on previous success stories, and there's been a couple dozen of them that I know of using this approach and been wildly successful. They've solved old cold cases, and the interesting thing is that the killer that they eventually identified and arrested and convicted was not on anybody's radar. The Golden State Killer was a former cop. He wasn't ever considered a suspect. And here, that was like a 40-year-old case that they solved using this approach. And
did you so I just want to be clear, you weren't asking the governor's office or to take over the investigation, just to ensure that or were you? You tell me. Could you share that? Could you share that letter with me by any chance?
I will. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Sure.
I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but basically make it happen. This needs to happen. The Boulder police have been, they've refused help from outside from the beginning. Lots of help was offered. Lots of qualified, experienced help was offered. They refused it and continue to do so to this day. So my frustration and expectation is that they would continue to refuse outside help. That's the only way this case is going to be solved.
Got it. So you basically, the letter was asking the governors to make sure that the evidence was being tested
to make it happen.
Make it happen, yeah. Is this? I mean, it'll be 26 years now in a few weeks. Is this time of year still difficult for you?
Not any more than any other time. No. Christmas Day for several years we didn't have Christmas anymore. It was just too difficult to deal with. But we do that now for the sake of our kids and our grandchildren, and but it's tempered for sure.
And how would you just in general, how would you just describe your feelings about this entire ordeal?
Well, life's not fair, and you sort of have to accept that. And it certainly wasn't fair in this case. The big disappointment for me was the failure of the government, the police department, to do their job and to continue to not do their job. And it's just really disappointing in the overall structure of our system. How could that be? And you want accountability, but it's difficult, if not impossible. I've said in the past that the killer took away my desire to live for a while. The pain was just intense. The police and the media took away my ability to live. And to some degree that's lost forever. I lost my job. Our life savings depleted and so forth. So, and that was not a function of the killer. It was a function of the police action and information they put out that was misleading and false. And the media picked it up and ran with it and basically convicted us in the court of public opinion. So that had lasting impact.
Do you think this case will ever be solved?
Not if it stays in the hands of the Boulder police. No, I don't. I really don't. And that's what Lou Smith told me. Lou was, this highly respected detective that was in Colorado, brought out of retirement to work on the case by the attorney. And I saw Lou just before he died, and even on his deathbed, he was saying, "We need to look at this guy, this suspect here. This, don't forget that name." But he said, if this case stays in the hands of the Boulder police, it probably will never be solved. And that's the first time I ever heard him say, "We're probably not going to solve it." He used to always say to me, "John, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get him." And he probably would have if he had lived.
When did he die?
It was
roughly 10 years ago?
10 years ago, roughly 11 years ago. Yeah, really. He was a wonderful man. He was a real detective.
Yes. No, I know. I'm very familiar with him. Yeah.
Very modest fellow. And but I remember John Douglas, who started the FBI Chrome Prime. Said he met Lou and talked to him. And he said, if I'd done something wrong, I wouldn't want this guy on my tail.